Hare Krishna, very dear devotees, welcome back once again to our ever ongoing lecture series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Pastracha Deshatarane. All glories to our beloved Srila Prabhupada. So we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will finally be part 100, 100 lectures. And today we'll continue with our discussions on the four transcendental qualities that distinguish our beloved Lord Krishna from Lord Narayan. As we've covered the first two, we shall now move on to the third, which is Krishna can attract living entities from all over the universe by playing on his flute. So to begin with, that Krishna can attract living entities from all over the universe by his flute playing is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 21, verse 141. Therein it's stated, the sound of Krishna's flute spreads in the four directions. Even though Krishna vibrates his flute within this universe, its sound pierces the universal covering and goes to the spiritual sky. Thus, the vibration enters the ears of all the inhabitants. It especially enters Goloka Vrindavan Dham and attracts the minds of the young damsels of Brajabhumi, bringing them forcefully to where Krishna is present. So this verse also reveals that Krishna's flute playing is appreciated even beyond this universe, for its relish not only in the spiritual world, but the topmost planet in the spiritual world, namely Goloka Vrindavan. In Ujjvala Nilamani, Sri Rupa Goswami writes that Vishaka Devi describes Krishna's flute to Srimati Radharani as follows, there in Goloka Vrindavan. And I quote her, as it touches his splendid teeth, Krishna's flute looks like a crystal wand. Where it touches Krishna's red lotus palm, it looks like a ruby stick. And where it touches Krishna's blue lotus cheek, it looks like a sapphire. Look, in this way Krishna's flute looks like these three different jewels. And Srila Prabhupada introduces us to Krishna's flute, very early in the movement, in chapter 21 of the Krishna book, wherein he writes, many of you know this because Krishna book is so dear to all of us. He writes, with the arrival of the beautiful autumn season, the waters in the lakes and rivers became as clear as crystal and filled with fragrant lotus flowers, and breezes blew very pleasantly. At that time, Krishna entered the forest of Vrindavan with the cows and the cowherd boys. Krishna was very much pleased with the atmosphere of the forest, where flowers bloomed and bees and drones hummed very jubilantly. While the birds, trees, and plants were all looking very happy, Krishna, tending the cows and accompanied by Shri Balaram and the cowherd boys, began to vibrate his transcendental flute. So for many of us, that was the first book, or one of the first books we had in ISKCON, and therein we're introduced to this flute, this amazing flute, Krishna's Vamsi. The Ananda Vrindavan Champu by Kavi Karnapura says at this particular point in the autumn season, quote, this autumn season is raining just like a king. Its bed is made of Shtala Kamala, pink hibiscus flowers. In other words, the ground becomes full of pink hibiscus flowers during this season. Its open-air canopy is studded with pearl-like stars above. Fully developed kasha flowers sway around and act as chamaras during this season. All this gives the impression of the season being just like a king resting in an open tent. very poetic. So in that description of autumn, we hear of pearl-like stars, like a canopy in Vrindavan. In other places, it's stated that Krishna's flute is also studded with pearls. For example, I found in a letter to Karandara Das, dated October 3rd, 1971, Srila Prabhupada writes, "My dear Karandara, please accept my blessings. Enclosed, you will find one photograph of the deities there in LA, Los Angeles, recently sent to me. But why is Krishna without a flute? What is the difficulty to make a flute for Krishna? You can simply take a twig and wrap it in a golden lace with the pearl drop hanging down. With the pearl drop hanging down, that is a flute." Now, in his writings, the poet Sri Harishwari asks the question, why exactly did Krishna decide to take up the flute during that autumn season? He poses a question. He'll give the reply too. Why exactly did Krishna decide to take up the flute during that autumn season? And he composes a verse in reply. Quote, "Krishna thought, even though this flute may be born in a faulty vamsa meaning, vamsa means like a lineage of bamboo reeds, yet there are muktas that have appeared here in Vrindavan." So here muktas can mean either pearls, or it can also refer to liberated souls, muktas. As such, Harisuri continues, Krishna says, "I must give shelter to this flute." Thinking like this, the Lord supported and elevated the flute using his own hands. So essentially, Krishna is saying that although his bamboo flute took birth amongst bamboo reeds, he gave it shelter because of its valuable pearl decorations, as stated. And the fact that it appeared in Vrindavan, where there are many liberated souls, muktas. It's interesting. A little complicated, but it's very beautiful. Now, despite the bamboo's questionable origin, the bamboo reed, the Gopis of Vrindavan expressed some jealousy about its good fortune in a famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-9. Therein, one Gopi says to another, "My dear Gopis," she addresses the group of Gopis, "My dear Gopis, what auspicious activities must the flute have performed to enjoy the nectar of Krishna's lips independently, and leave only a taste for us Gopis, for whom that nectar is actually meant? The forefathers of the flute, the bamboo trees, shed tears of pleasure. His mother, the river, on whose bank the bamboo was born, feels jubilation, and therefore her blooming lotus flowers are standing like hair upon her body." Wow. Now, interestingly, there are other verses in Vedic literatures which glorify the birth or origins of Krishna's bamboo flute, because the Gopis glorified it there. For example, there's a verse found in the Shubhashita Ratna Bandagaram. The Shubhashita Ratna Bandagaram says, she is Vamsi, flute. She is Vamsi, a flute. She, this flute, is a lady. Even though she is held forcibly by hands, and even though she is kissed by Parapurusha, a paramour, meaning the Supreme Lord, she is born from a great Vamsa. Here we are again, a great Vamsa, a lineage of bamboo. And hence she immediately started crying out as soon as she was touched in this way. But again, the Gopis have few kind words for that flute. There were a few there, but actually they have very few kind words for the flute that Krishna often puts to his lips to enliven the residents of Vrindavan. Sri Harisuri expresses the hearts of these Gopis in his own words. Here, one Gopi is talking to another. If anyone steals even a little bit of the property of another person, then the Supreme Lord will never accept such a person immersed in the sin of stealing. How is it possible then that the flute, which has stolen our property, the lower lip nectar of Krishna, is not only accepted by him, but also supported by him using his very hands? He then composes another verse where the gopis again chide Krishna's flute. He writes, "O Murali, flute, for your residence you have the lotus-like face of Krishna, and for your drinking you have his lip nectar. His lower lip is your resting bed, his soft thumbs are your raised pillows, various fingers, ladies, are engaged in pressing your feet. What greater happiness can there be? Alas, O flute, despite all these comforts, why don't you ever go to sleep?" Gopis are challenged, why don't you ever go to sleep? You're getting all this nectar. Get out of the way. Krishna is ours, his lips are ours. So in this way, the gopis used to show transcendental jealousy towards the flute. Now, according to Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.365, Krishna's flutes have three names. He writes, Esha Trita Bhaved Venu, Murali Vamshi Kate Api. There's the Venu, there's the Murali, and there's the Vamsi. He gives the definition of a Venu flute in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.366 as follows. He writes, Venu is also named Parika. It is 12 fingers long. It is as thick as a thumb and has 6 apertures, meaning holes. A little technical, but we often say love is in the details. So Venu is also named Parika. It is 12 fingers long. It's as thick as the thumb, and it has 6 apertures or holes. And in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.367, he gives the definition of the Murali flute. He writes, she, we heard how the flute's she has a length of 2 palms, she has an aperture, a hole for the mouth, she has 4 other apertures for shvaras, meaning notes. She is known as Murali, and she sounds very sweet. Now his definition of Vamsi is found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.368 to 369. It takes 2 verses to describe the Vamsi. He writes, she has 8 apertures for shvaras or notes, each separated by length of a half a finger. 2.5 fingers away from the final aperture is another aperture for the mouth. Like you see the flute holes, and then some distance away the person plays the flute in a bigger hole. In this way, there are a total of 9 apertures. The end, having the mouth aperture, is 3 fingers long, and the other end is 4 fingers long. She is known as Vamsi, and the learned have measured it to be a total of 17 fingers. So there you go. Now we'll move on. The acharyas say that when Krishna plays his flute in Vrindavan, he plays different melodies to, how do they put it, accomplish various purposes. It's interesting. They write that one melody he plays causes demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva to break their meditation. And in doing so, they forget everything in astonishment. With this first melody, it's described, Lord Anantadev always sways his head as if in hypnosis. His second melody makes the Jamuna River flow backwards. A third melody makes the moon stop moving. A fourth melody, with his flute, makes cows run to him and become stunned listening to the flute. A fifth melody, often referred to, actually in this case, a note, attracts the gopis and makes them come running to him, the 5th note. A 6th melody makes stones melt, and interestingly it says, creates the autumn season. It's very mystical. A sixth melody makes stones melt, at the same time creates the autumn season. A seventh melody manifests all seasons. We often read there's 6 seasons in Vrindavan. They actually exist simultaneously, by the way. And an eighth melody is meant exclusively for who? For Srimati Radharani. It's stated that it takes the form of her name and calls for her. Wow. A melody is meant exclusively for Srimati Radharani, and it takes the form of her name and calls for her. Krishna calls Radha with a melody, her name. Her name is a melody. So that's all very interesting. A side note here is that Krishna also has a flute named Mahananda. He has a flute named Mahananda, which it's described acts like a fish hook, which is said to capture the fish of Srimati Radharani's heart and mind. How sweet. Of course, as we've heard today, Radharani, Srimati Radharani, is not the only gopi to be captivated by Krishna's flute. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 21, verse 144 states, the vibration of his, Krishna's flute, is just like a bird that creates a nest within the ears of all the gopis and always remains prominent there, not allowing any other sound to enter their ears. Indeed, the gopis cannot hear anything else, nor are they able to concentrate on anything else, not even to give a suitable reply. Such are the effects of the vibration of Lord Sri Krishna's flute. All the gopis. Now, in the purport to that verse, Srila Prabhupada makes a very interesting comparison of the sound of Krishna's flute to the sound of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is my favorite part. In the purport to that verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada makes a very interesting comparison of the sound of Krishna's flute, in your mind, just think the sound of Krishna's flute, and the sound of the Hare Krishna mantra. Listen to this, he writes, it's so nice. The vibration of Krishna's flute is always prominent in the ears of the gopis. Since their attention is fixed on Krishna's flute, they cannot divert their minds to any other subject. In other words, a devotee who has heard the sound of Krishna's flute forgets to talk or hear of any other subject. This vibration of Krishna's flute is represented by the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. A serious devotee of the Lord who chants and hears this transcendental vibration, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, becomes so accustomed to it that he cannot divert his attention to any other subject matter not related to Krishna's blissful characteristics and paraphernalia. Whoa. I'd like to hear Krishna's flute. You just chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because Prabhupada said this vibration of Krishna's flute is represented by the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We are so blessed. So once again, we can conclude that, yes, Krishna can attract living entities from all over the universe by playing on his flute, the subject matter of today's lecture, but he also captivates the living entities in the spiritual world, namely the residents of Goloka Vrindavan with his flute playing. In this regard, we will share one short pastime before concluding. I actually told this pastime, I think, 1 or 2 years ago, but as Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say, he'd use this phrase, once upon a time. Once upon a time, Krishna had an idea to play his flute in a certain way so as to attract the gopis to where he was standing in the forest. He thought, I will play a tune that will bewilder and attract the gopis, especially Sri Radha. I just need to find the notes or the melody to which those girls are most susceptible and to which their senses will be attracted. So it's described he began experimenting. with different, flute melodies. One day he played a tune that stunned his cows, who gave up eating grass in favor of relishing the flute song with their ears and tasting the sweetness of Krishna's face with their eyes. Tasting the sweetness of Krishna's face with their eyes. The next day, Krishna tried another tune. This tune made all the forest animals and the birds stunned. And like the cows, they all just stood still as if, it's described, they had been confined within invisible cages. They had been confined within invisible cages. On the third day, Krishna's melody that he was experimenting with to attract the Gopis, it attracted the deer, who flocked to him in mass. And mesmerized by his attractive appearance, they worshipped Krishna with love-filled eyes. It's one way you can worship Krishna, love-filled eyes. Now the Gopis eventually became aware of these, how could you put it, practice sessions, and they went and told Krishna's mother. They said to her, "O pious Mother Yasoda, your son, who is expert in the art of herding cows, has now invented various novel styles of flute playing. Like, what's going on?" So on the fourth day, Krishna played another tune that attracted the demigoddesses in Svargaloka, who were so bewildered by that sound, that melody, that their clothes loosened and their ornaments fell off their bodies. And on the fifth day, Krishna played a melody so powerful that all animate things became unconscious and all inanimate things came to life. All inanimate things came to life. The acharyas say that still the gopis remain unaffected, but the river Jamuna was especially deeply moved. Actually, when the Jamuna river heard the flute song of Krishna, it's described, she stopped flowing and became completely bewildered. Her waves swelled and her waters trembled. Then changing course, she flowed towards Krishna and offered lotus flowers at his feet. But alas, the acharyas say again, that melody somehow didn't attract the gopis. So Krishna just kept trying new melodies, day after day after day, that, it's described in one place, mesmerized the clouds overhead and Vrindavan's mountains like Govardhan Hill, but not his beloved gopis. But, try again until you succeed. One day, finally, Krishna found the proper melody for attracting the gopis. And it's described just in time, too. Because feeling separation from Krishna, the gopis were becoming frantic because he's all day practicing melodies. They weren't having his association. So they were becoming frantic, to the point that their in-laws thought that their sons had married mad women. But most disturbed, we can appreciate, of all the gopis was Srimati Radharani, of course, who at one point was thinking that she just wants to become a bamboo flute to have Krishna's association. She thought as follows. The flute is fortunate because it does not have to be shy like us gopis. Thus it rests in Krishna's hands and transforms the nectar of Krishna's lips into beautiful music that causes the rivers to swell and the bamboo along the river banks to shed tears in the forms of honey. The bamboo along the river's banks to shed tears in the form of honey. I pray for the body of a bamboo flute. I reject this body of a supposedly respectable woman. No other type of body can relish what the flute does, as Krishna plays it with eagerness and affection. The day I become a flute, my consciousness will certainly ebb. No doubt I will forget my identity, but Krishna will remember me as the gopi who became a piece of wood from suffering in separation from him. Shri Brajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. But Krishna will remember me as the gopi who became a piece of wood from suffering in separation from him. But eventually, as we know, as per Yogamaya's plan, Purnamasi, Sri Radha and the Gopis' intense desire to be with Krishna was fulfilled that day when Krishna played his flute at Vamsivat, and all the young Gopis came running and danced with the Lord in Rasa Leela for an entire night of Brahma. Hare Krishna. So, let's finish with the words of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada in his Lalita Madhava 1038. Very appropriate way to finish today, by his grace. He writes, Dear Krishna, the fragrance of the mellows of your pastimes is spread throughout the forests of the glorious land of Vrindavan, which is surrounded by the sweetness of the district of Mathura. In the congenial atmosphere of that wonderful land, you enjoy your pastimes with your flute dancing on your lips, and surrounded by us, the gopis, whose hearts are always enchanted by unpredictable, ecstatic emotions. Thank you, Sri Rupa Goswami. And thank you, Srila Prabhupada, the revealer of the Dham. We'll be back next Friday. I think we'll put another lecture together on how Krishna can attract everyone in the universe with his flute playing and beyond, as we learned today. So thank you, Prabhus. Shishi Gauranitai ki, Shishi Krishna Balaram ki, Shishi Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavan Eshwari, Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Gauranitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Pimnandi, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Sharm. Hare Krishna. See you soon. Glories to Prabhupada.